The real-life boogeyman. In 1973, the quiet town of Ashton Falls became infamous for a series of disappearances. At first, they seemed like random tragedies. A child here, a teenager there, a drifter never heard from again. The town mourned, but few suspected anything beyond the mundane horrors of the world. It wasn't until whispers of the boogeyman began circulating that people started to see a terrifying pattern. I was just a kid back then, about 9 years old. My parents always told me to be careful at night, to never stray too far from home. But the boogeyman wasn't real, was he? He was just a bedtime story, a figure parents used to scare children into behaving. That's what I thought, until the night I saw him. It was mid-October, and Halloween decorations were already popping up around town. My best friend Tommy and I were obsessed with haunted houses and ghost stories, so we decided to sneak out late one night to the old church graveyard on the outskirts of town. Everyone said it was haunted, that strange things happened there after dark. Tommy dared me, and I couldn't say no. We met up around 10 p.m., armed with flashlights and a bravery that only 2 reckless kids could muster. The night was thick with fog, and the moon barely peeked through the clouds. As we neared the cemetery gates, an eerie stillness settled over the area. No crickets, no wind, just silence. We climbed over the rusty gate and made our way through the rows of headstones. The deeper we went, the more I regretted coming. The air felt wrong, heavy, as if something was watching us. Tommy, always the bravest, laughed and started calling out, "Boogeyman, come out, wherever you are." His voice echoed unnaturally, fading into the fog. That's when we heard it. A low, guttural scraping sound like metal dragging against stone. We froze, our flashlights flickering as we scanned the area. "Probably just an animal," Tommy whispered, but I could see the fear in his eyes. The sound grew louder, closer. From the corner of my eye, I saw movement near one of the taller tombstones. Something dark and tall, much larger than a man. At first, I thought it was just a shadow playing tricks on me, but then it shifted. The figure seemed to blend with the fog, its outline barely discernible. But its presence, that was unmistakable. A shape, humanoid, yet wrong, was slinking toward us. Its limbs were too long, its head tilted at an unnatural angle, and its eyes, if they were eyes, were voids of blackness staring into us. The air grew colder. Tommy dropped his flashlight and I heard him mutter, "Run." But I couldn't move. My legs were frozen in place as the figure glided closer, its movement impossibly smooth, as if its feet never touched the ground. That scraping sound continued, louder now, and I realized with horror that it was coming from its hands. Long, claw-like fingers dragging across the stones. Tommy screamed and bolted, snapping me out of my trance. I turned and ran, my heart pounding in my chest, the blood roaring in my ears. Behind us, the scraping sound followed, faster now, gaining on us. I dared to glance back and saw the figure, closer, almost upon us, its face a blur of twisted features, as if it wasn't fully formed. We ran as fast as we could, back through the cemetery gates and down the road toward town. The scraping stopped the moment we crossed the boundary of the graveyard, but I could feel it watching, waiting. Tommy and I never spoke about that night again. But soon after, another disappearance shook Ashton Falls. A boy from our school, about our age, vanished without a trace. His parents said he'd gone to play near the cemetery. They never found him. Years passed, and the disappearances eventually stopped. But the memory of that figure haunts me to this day. It wasn't a story. It wasn't a figment of a child's imagination. The boogeyman was real, lurking in the shadows, waiting for anyone foolish enough to enter his domain. And I'll never forget the sound of those claws scraping against stone,